indiasourcing.net. If you haven't heard yet, that's our new website for India Sourcing Network, where we provide you everything you need to source private label products from India. We provide you the content that you require, the information that you need about learning how to source from India. We provide you connections to vetted export manufacturers, to reliable service providers, and we provide you access to an amazing supportive community, content connections community. That's what you get at India Sourcing Network. Check out our website at indiasourcing.net. Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. Today we are talking about exiting an Amazon business, and we have with us our guest waiting backstage, Yev from Rainforest. And he's going to be talking about how you can exit a business. And this is an Ask Me Anything, so you can ask any questions that you might have about exiting an Amazon business. Margaret and Kevin, hi. How are you guys doing today?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good day, Magla. How are you?
Doing great. Lots of exciting stuff coming up, right, Marg? I mean, we've got so many...
Lots of things happening, and we're going to be very busy, especially during the night.
Yes. We've got lunch with Norm coming up tonight, and that's going to be 2 a.m. for you and 12 a.m. for me. That's going to be fun.
And a real good one today on exiting. A lot of people are sort of, it's the topic of the moment, exiting Amazon or, a marketplace. So, excellent.
Exactly. Yeah. Very, very topical. And Rainforest is such an amazing company. They are based in Singapore. And, the founders are experienced Amazon sellers. They understand e-commerce. They understand Amazon. So I think that's just so very important. And also, we want to remind everyone that our PPC workshop is coming up later this month. So definitely check out this workshop. It's a live interactive 2-day workshop that's hosted by Ritu Java, who's really a PPC ninja. And she's absolutely amazing when it comes to PPC. So this workshop is basically for anybody who wants to understand the basics and the principles of Amazon PPC. So it's a beginner's workshop where we teach you, how to set up your PPC campaigns when launching products, how to do keyword research the right way, and basically, a lot of how to set up campaigns. That's something that people, struggle with a lot. Marg, what do you think about the PPC workshop? What are you most excited about?
I think the best thing is the Telegram group that goes on for weeks. I think it's still going on from the last one, and it's nearly to the next one. So, it's good that a lot of people actually, I suppose, become friends and, make themselves a little network out of it as well. And, everyone's always, asking questions and helping each other, as well as Ritu jumping in as well. So I think it's probably a real extra bonus that you get, not just the 2 days, but you get extra time as well, which a lot of places you do the course and it's goodbye and we'll never see you again. So I think it's fantastic.
And it's great value. What's Ritu's excuse me, right. Oh, excuse me, I had something in my throat there. But Ritu's sort of his mantra is, she'll teach you or help you learn how to love PPC.
She'll never get me to love it. I told her that. If I live to be 100, I still won't love PPC.
But it is a difficult subject, and it is. But I think there's plenty of people that have done the workshop so far have been more than happy with the progress they've made with the help of Ritu and
the results,
and
the results they've got,
Absolutely. So if you're interested, go ahead and go to this URL, theasianseller.com/PPC-workshop. Check out the dates. If you're in the US, then the workshop starts on Friday, 23rd of July. And if you're in Asia or Australia, the workshop starts on 24th, Saturday morning, 24th of July. So check out the workshop, and we hope to see you there. Okay, so let's bring our guest on. And hello and welcome, Yev. How are you?
Top of the morning. Good morning, guys. Hi.
Good Yev. Welcome to Wednesday webinar.
Very excited to be here.
Thank you.
Excited to have you.
Yeah. So first of all, Yev, thank you to Rainforest for being a launch partner of our website, indiasourcing.net. So we really appreciate your guys' support, and very excited to be talking to you and learning more about Rainforest. And so let's get started. Why don't you first of all tell us about yourself, Yev? What is your background?
Sure. So myself, I based here right now in Singapore, but as you can probably tell from my accent, originally I was born in Ukraine, and then most of my adulthood spent in UK, in London, going back sort of working for big financial institutions, investment banks, Citigroup, Deutsche Bank. Spent over 8 years of my life sort of doing that, and then quite earlier on sort of joined the e-commerce with the e-commerce bug and joined the entrepreneurial side of things. So back in 2012, and I sort of being in e-commerce space or ecosystem in variety of places, right? Both from doing sort of early investments as an angel myself in some sort of direct-to-consumer brands. One of those actually turned out quite well, was Unicorn Dollar Shave Club, so was an early investor there. Also being sort of part of platforms before even Amazon, Groupon, Fab, not on the high street.com, so some of your UK probably listeners would know those. And then eventually sort of joined Amazon in 2014, and the space was exciting, was moving very fast, and naturally that part sort of grew and grew. And so I've launched myself like a number of brands and scaled them to 7 figures. I shouldn't say myself, I had some co-founders in each of the brands, so it was a sort of a team effort, a few of us. And then at some point I started doing financing for other entrepreneurs, for other e-commerce sellers, and because I found that there is a gap, especially when it comes to sort of cross-border global working capital solutions, cash flows, like common problems. And so that sort of led to another business that I started, which was providing working capital solutions, providing inventory financing for global cross-border e-commerce operators, basically. And recently, with aggregator space is growing, so this is a new chapter. So I'm working now with Rainforest, who is Asia-based, Asia-focused acquirer of Amazon businesses, in a role of sort of VP of acquisitions, and ultimately sort of heading the acquisition efforts. It's kind of an end-to-end, overseeing end-to-end process from originating, finding businesses to acquire, all the way to migration, to a point where our team sort of hands over to brand managers, who then operate those businesses and grow them further and scaling them.
Okay, fantastic. So Trish North is here, and she is a birthday girl today. Happy birthday, Trish. I hope you're enjoying your day. Looks like she's working. Okay, so tell us a little bit more about Rainforest, Yev. Who are the founders, and what sort of, when was it established? And tell us a little bit about Rainforest, yeah.
Sure. So as I said, Rainforest is Asia-focused, is headquartered in Singapore, founded by 3 amazing founders, JJ, Ola, and Jason, who also have like decades of experience between them in e-commerce, both in Amazon as well as other platforms, and other major sort of growth unicorn brands such as A&B, Ovo, Fav, deep Amazon expertise. So for example, Ola, he 7-figure seller himself. He also very plugged into ecosystem and have a successful SaaS business for Amazon sellers. And in 2020, they come together to start what sort of became Rainforest. And the idea here that they saw sort of a gap in the market. You had the space sort of picking up in US, and US brands being being acquired, but quite often sort of non-US brands, especially Asian brands, were looked down upon, or it was harder for the entrepreneurs in this part of the world, sort of for a number of reasons, to get liquidity when get potential exit. So that was one of the gaps they saw and decided to solve that problem. Another part was them being sort of plugged into e-commerce ecosystem at large, even outside of Amazon here in this part of the world, working for companies such as Carousel, for example, knowing Lazada, Tokopedia deeply. So they have this vision of bringing brands cross marketplaces, cross regions, right, and expanding them globally. So it's great. Someone has traction, let's say on Amazon US. Obviously, it's almost a given nowadays. You want to expand throughout the Amazon ecosystem, but what's next, right? And so I think this is the piece we're also focusing quite deeply on in terms of taking it further, like going beyond Amazon and expanding within APAC and on all these other platforms.
Okay, that sounds fantastic. So guys watching, if you have any questions about preparing your business for an exit, or anything at all, what kind of products they're looking for, how to structure your business for an exit, type your questions in the comment section and Yev will be able to answer all of your questions. So Yev, let me ask you one question first. So let's say somebody is starting out today. What are some of the things that they need to keep in mind so that their business is optimized for an exit, 2 years down the line?
Sure. I mean, first and foremost, any aggregator, us included, ultimately, who would be a new owner of the business would look at the business to a large extent same way the owner initially looks. So it has to be profitable, it has to grow, it has to be sustainable kind of growth, right? So those are almost a given. So as an owner, look at it through the same eyes. It's not just an overnight success that we're looking for, right? So first and foremost is, as I said, profitability, right? As you know, like all these businesses are valued on the trailing 12 months. So basically the last 12 months of profit, and then the multiple is applied to it. So obviously that profitability is super important. Beyond that, it's how sustainable that profitability is. So built for long term, which means great, make sure that you have a great product, great story, it's all tied together. It creates that moat that keep on giving over time, right? And also it puts you as a builder and owner of that business now in much stronger position, whether you're going to end up selling it or not. You want to own that business for the long term, because it's going to keep on giving. So those are critical things. In the profit margin is another thing. And obviously it goes two ways. Like as you're growing your business, quite often you sacrifice the profit margin because you're trying to build that speed of growth. You're testing, you're running experiments. So the profit margin initially could be a bit tight, but have a clear path of how that profit margin could expand if you are successful, further down the line. And that's, again, fits back into that strong product, strong brand loyalty. That should allow you to get more reviews, more ranking, and therefore more pricing power further down the line, because your product will be unique and different to the competitors. On the housekeeping kind of side of things, it's pays to have a very clean financials. So don't commingle it, with personal expenses and so forth. Like from earlier on, try to pay attention to that. So get a good CPA and make sure at least the last 12 months of your financials are squeaky clean, but as much as possible. It just makes things much easier, and odds are you will get much better valuation and much better exit and much faster exit. Nothing scares more sort of acquirers, when it's incomplete information, and then they start imagining the worst things possible, even though it might not be the case. But so yeah, pay attention to that, I should say. Yeah, I think those are the most important. And yeah, like, just don't do things for pure, I don't know, vanity or pure optics. Only do them if it makes sort of financial sense, commercial sense from a business perspective. Yeah.
Mark.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, just one question here. So when you're looking for a brand, are you looking for, say, someone who's got 2 products, 20 products? Is there I suppose, a benchmark that you like, or it doesn't matter if people can just have 1 or 2 successful products, or do you think they need a brand with, 6, 8, 10 products? What are you looking for as in your company? I know the bigger ones obviously, are looking for the multi-million dollars, but where do you sit in the range of acquirers?
Sure. So in terms of, that's a great question. I mean, in terms of, and unfortunately there is no, people throw specific numbers, but and we have those numbers as well. So ideally, we don't want more than, let's say, 150 SKUs or parent SKUs, right? We can start obviously as low as 1 parent SKU, and in terms of revenue, we could look at as low as $200,000 to $250,000 revenue, which will be very on the low side of things, and it's more like an exception as opposed to the rule, and all the way up to 10, 15 million. But at the same time, I should say, don't get too focused on those numbers. Those are not very hard sort of criteria, I should say, because those criteria is important if your business is no different, or like quite bread and butter, sort of vanilla type of business in every other respect. But maybe your business is different. Maybe you have a patent or like exceptional product, and then in that case, it never hurts to start the conversation, even if it's a little bit preemptive, maybe like 6 months, prior, when you should have. Like, there is literally no downside. And the worst thing that can happen, like potential buyers would say, okay, no, not now, right? So I should. But on the upside, the deal might happen much sooner than you expect. Maybe they will offer some intermediate help, to get you there faster, and then acquire you. So yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about sort of the size side of things. Obviously, on the track record, I think that's a little bit more important there. We are looking for businesses with at least 18 months of track record typically, and at least like 12 months worth of profitability track record. Those aspects are important. On the higher end, so as I was saying, like 100, 150 SKUs is beyond that, it becomes kind of tricky, but also, as I said, not a hard rule, because it comes down, like, the way to look at it is, what is the revenue per SKU? What is the contribution per that parent SKU? And then what is the supply chain looks like? How many suppliers per, or how many of those sort of parents per supplier they have? Because there is a difference between, a business that has maybe even 1,000 parent ASINs. I'm just making things a little bit extreme here, but 1,000 parent ASINs, but all comes from one supplier, and all of them contributing, let's say, $100,000 per ASIN. That business is still quite very attractive, right? Because even though it's complex, but it's substantial size on a per parent basis. So this is sort of the framework there. What we're trying to avoid is obviously a lot of ASINs, a lot of SKUs, a lot of suppliers, but ultimately they're not contributing much. It's a small revenue generation business, because that presents a a lot of complexity, a lot of operational sort of overhead for not much revenue and therefore not much profit at the starting point.
Okay, we've got one question over here. Okay, go ahead, Kevin.
Go on, Megla. Far away.
Okay, let's take this question first. So Anja is asking, is it important for the brand to be active on social media? Or do you sometimes buy brands that purely do well on Amazon but don't have any social media presence? So I think this is a great question. And, so not only social media, but how important is it for you that the brand focuses on Amazon? Or is there a certain percentage of sales that must be on Amazon?
So the short answer here is, yeah, we prefer brands that have Amazon presence. Ideally, like something 60 to 70% of their total revenue comes from Amazon. However, again, it's not a hard sort of criteria. We've looked, considered, and potentially going to acquire brands that have zero Amazon presence with the idea that we will take them to Amazon, right? That's on that side. And then the question was also about the social media, whether it's important. For sure, it's back to that brand loyalty, brand sort of awareness, and building a moat and sustainability of the user base and the quality of the profitability and the growth for your brand. So that helps for sure. So if you have a very engaged community on social channels, and that's maybe how you're launching some of your products or the products in such a category where it's crucial to have social media sort of presence, it will be definitely a plus, and it will, most likely increase your exit multiple, because ultimately it helps that brand protection, and differentiator against your competitors.
Right. Kev, did you have a question?
Yeah. I just what certain sort of criteria do you look for when evaluating businesses in the first place? Yeah.
Sure. The first and foremost, it's, as I was saying, trailing 12 months profitability, trailing 12 months revenue. There is a margin, obviously, implicitly there. So the margin of the business has to be of a certain certain quantum, right?
And how much
gross.
is that? I mean, is there like a specific range that you're looking for in terms of the margin?
So ideally, we would like to see sort of 20% or above margins. That's where it gets into quite healthy categories. So there is because as these brands are still quite early stages, as I was saying, it's and they're still quite often in the growth. There is a decent amount of experimentation that needs to be done, right? And expansion, all that costs money. So you need some margin to buffer some of those experiments, because not all experiments will work out, as entrepreneurs and Amazon sellers know. So you need that margin to cushion things. Growth is another thing that's very important, to have non-declining business. If it's declining, it's also potentially doable, but there has to be a sort of a good, consistent narrative or explanation why it is declining, and and we need to figure out like how it could be stopped and how can it be turned around. So those are the mains. Another obvious ones is obviously around sort of the brand mode. So those will be the R3s that they're known in the industry, basically reviews, rankings and ratings, like how your product, how your brand compares to other products within that particular niche. Do you have that escape velocity? Basically, you have the review mode, you're ranked best of your competitors, and the ratings are ultimately better than your competitors. That also pumps up your your multiple, if you will, because it offers that layer of protection for whoever will take over your brand, right?
Yeah, I like that. 3 R's: reviews, ranks, and ratings. Really good. Okay, we've got another question from Anja. Is it an issue if I have one Amazon seller account with 2 brands under it, but only want to sell one brand? Is it possible to separate the brand from the account? Apologies if this question is too specific. No, it's not specific. And I had a similar kind of question as well, because a lot of people do have multiple brands under one account, and it's not easy to have multiple accounts on Amazon. So what does a seller do in that case?
Yeah, it's definitely doable. It would probably be a little bit, less common, but it does happen. Because these deals are structured as asset purchase agreements, typically. What we can do in that situation is basically just buy the ASINs, right, and the inventory and the exclusivity to sell on those ASINs. Also, the trademark will be in so the brand registry that has to be transferred as well. But the seller account could be potentially kept with the original owner that way. So it definitely could work. I mean, the technical or the mechanics of it would be obviously a little bit more a little bit trickier, because you would have to pull out the inventory out of Amazon, like and so to ensure sort of the consistent continuous sales velocity on those ASINs. So it has to almost be done in 2 steps. So one, we would need to start selling like at least a small quantity of the inventory from our side, and then the rest of the inventory has to be pulled out from the original seller's account and then transferred to us. So at any given time, there is no sort of the listings don't go sort of out of stock. But other than that, it's doable. We also have sellers who have multiple accounts, and also things that are doable, right? So they sell one but not the others, or not at this stage. Sometimes because the brands and accounts are at different level of growth. So something that is a little bit more mature, and they feel like it reached that place where it could be sold. Other ones are more at the early stages, and they still want to keep it, and that allows them to take some money off the table, quite a considerable amount, while still being in the game and continue, and almost they built themselves as an assembly line, if you will, of these brands, right? And this is true. Like, so I think this is what's happening in the industry itself, right? Finding products to sell and finding that product market fit, brand market fit. It takes a lot of effort, and kudos to all these Amazon sellers who manage to do it, right? But it's hard work, and it's a certain skill, and quite a lot of them enjoy doing it, right? Because it's also quite addictive, quite exciting, right? You start something and you see it growing and going to the moon, right? Like, yeah, and they are good at that. They have super lean operations, and they almost like fire up those experiments, right? I call them experiments, but like product launches, 3 out of 5 works, the other 2 dies, and they keep on iterating, keep on improving, and ultimately once they find and it ramps up, they have this pool of buyers who basically can go and offer them like a fair amount of money or funds, and to take that brand or product to the next level, because for the next level it requires certain other sort of resources and sort of assets, if you will, to scale it, to push it, the supply chain, further to make it truly global, right?
Right. We got a couple of questions here from Sridhar. So a couple of questions from me. Sorry, it's covering your videos. I'll just remove the question. What valuation typically is Rainforest offering? I know it depends upon many factors, but can you give some guidelines? What is the time frame for selling to Rainforest? Is it a payout right away or is it over time? So there are a couple of questions. And then he has a follow-up question as well. Does Rainforest buy the company, the registered entity, or just take over the listing or the Amazon account? I guess that's what you were saying. So let's address the first couple of questions first. So what valuation do you typically offer? And I guess he means like, what's the multiple of the profit?
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, sort of these businesses typically they trade on as a multiple of trailing 12 months of earnings, or seller discretionary earnings, they call them, right? As he points out, yes, it varies a lot because of all those factors. How fast is it growing? How defensible is it? How well it ranks, and so forth. So I would say we are very competitive on pricing, and the premise why we launched Rainforest was to equalize sort of the multiples and the valuations, in Asia Pacific, because at the time it was particularly in this part of the world, it was sort of a discount was applied to some extent to the businesses from here. So it's very competitive. It's very in line with the market, and to give a range, it's anywhere between 3x or 3 times that multiple up to potentially even like 6 times. It's a very wide range, as you can imagine, but that's because a lot goes into it, and the businesses are quite often very different, right, in terms of where they are today and what are their sort of prospects of where they are going, because some of them are growing triple digits, sometimes even quarter on quarter, right? So and they're at large scale, and they have patents and things like that. So obviously, and also the nature of the product. Some products are consumable or subscribe and save, so they have much higher percentage of repeat customers. So obviously, those type of businesses with that type of growth, with certain easiness of operational maintenance or scale, would command higher multiples, opposed to, on the other side, will be businesses that kind of maybe smaller, more cumbersome in terms of the operational aspects.
And so the next question is,
yep.
What is the time frame for selling to Rainforest? Is it a payout right away, or is it over time?
So typically it has both of those components. So there is a payment upfront, which is the largest component. It varies. It can be as high as well. In some extreme cases, it could be as high as 100%. So all the money is paid upfront. Upfront meaning like on the deal closure date. So typically, the stages of from initial introduction, let's say the potential seller reaches out to us on rainforest.live through referral, right? Says, I'm open to idea of selling my business, let's talk. From that point onwards, typically we have few calls, we sign some NDAs, we exchange the information, we evaluate, provide the LOI, which is letter of intent, which is basically a term sheet for the business that includes the price, the multiple. If the seller sort of likes that, they accept that, and then the deal goes into what's called the due diligence process. So due diligence process is ultimately to verify and validate all the information that's been shared prior to that, if it's actually true. So, and there are a number of few parts of the due diligence. One is the legal due diligence. There is financial due diligence and operational due diligence. Those are the 3 main components. That process can take as little as 2 weeks, as long as the person, the seller, the owner of the business, have all his or her ducks in order, so to speak, right? Meaning the documents are ready, the invoices are ready. So for all those 3 types of due diligence, everything is sort of ready. So then it could be a very fast process. And then from that point onwards, it's kind of APA agreement drafted. APA stands for Asset Purchase Agreement. So it's basically the contract through which we buy certain assets from the owner, and the owner receive financial payout, right? And once that's signed, then money typically goes into escrow account, because first the business has to be migrated, right? The assets, in case like seller account has to be migrated. That could take, and it's kind of out of our hands, right? So it's up to Amazon, and it could be as quick as a few days, but sometimes maybe certain things could take a little bit longer. So let's say it's a week. And so once the migration is done, the escrow agent releases the funds. So the funds are sort of sits in a third-party account, third-party sort of trusted agent, right? So that's when the upfront component is released. And as I said, like in some extreme cases, it could be 100%. It's quite unusual. Yeah, and then there are other components. One is called stability payment. So that typically is an additional amount, could be quite considerable, that is paid on the first year anniversary. So in 12 months from that day of completion, right, from APA signing and migration. Sometimes stability is sort of split over 2 years. So it's part of it is paid 12 months on, and then another part is 24 months after. And then there is what's called earnout. Earnout is something that also they will get, the owner will get over time, but it's not fixed. Unlike stability, which is a fixed dollar amount, the earnout is actually presents some upside to the owner. So we have to remember these businesses are growing quite fast, and so the faster they grow, the larger the amount. So it's almost like the owner is selling the business, but still have a certain amount of stake in that business. So whatever happens over the next 2 years, sometimes 3 years, the owner will benefit from that. So it will get a percentage, almost like a share, from that growth. So that's why for the owner, it's important when they choose who to sell to, right? Because the operational capability and the growth plans, the growth roadmap, and how likely that team is on to execute on that on those plans are, because it's financially basically they will benefit more. And I should also point out that Rainforest, to a certain extent, is different from other aggregators in terms of the simplicity of this sort of the deal structure. So we are more flexible on the deal structures, and we could be more creative in terms of doing a deal such that it benefits and addresses sort of the points of the seller. So we try to talk to the seller and find out what's ultimately they want from the deal, and be creative how we structure the deal so it addresses those points for the owner, and it's kind of a win-win. We also keep them simple and friendly from a legal perspective, and the clauses, and also transparent. So an example would be on the earnout component, we make it as a percentage of revenue. So it's very as opposed to earnings, because earnings is harder to verify, to check, once the business is sold. But revenue is quite simple, you can and obvious. And another component with earnings, as it grows, the earnings tend to be squeezed, and so the revenue could be growing, but the earnings could be sort of suffering for a period of time because it's in a growth stage. Yeah.
Right. So the other question that he had was, does Rainforest buy the company or just take over the listing? Or I think we mentioned account, right? So it's basically the Amazon account that you're taking over.
So again, we can do both. In most of the cases, as I said, it's asset purchase agreement, meaning it's just the assets of the company. So that includes the seller account, trademarks, etc. Right? So, but not the legal entity itself. For some jurisdiction, and quite often it's just also beneficial for the owner to do the deal that way. But for some jurisdictions, it could be beneficial to do, sort of a deal that it's a share transfer, right? It's basically Rainforest is buying a company. It could be a little bit marginally, I should say, maybe more difficult, because we also would have to do some due diligence into that legal entity to make sure that all the taxes being paid, and because we're implicitly taking all that liability, right? But both deals are, both structures are on the table, and both could be done. Yeah, and we have like very capable legal team, that is very familiar with all the major sort of jurisdictions, but especially the APAC. So both from the tax perspective as well as sort of corporation structures, and so we can do both. But in majority cases, it's the assets that are sort of bought and sold.
Okay, just one question. Can I go back to, when you were talking about the payouts and things, do people actually keep helping you run the business, or do you just, once you've taken your settlement, you're gone? Or, because I've heard of some sort of acquirers who actually keep the people, on for 6 months or 12 months or whatever.
Sure. So we in the typical LOI, we ask for 60 days and 60 hours worth of sort of post migration of potential help or advice or consultation. But to be honest, like in all the deals so far, we probably used only 10% of that. So it just it's there just in case, but it goes like it's a testament to our operational team, brand managers, and their sort of decades of experience in Amazon and dealing with these businesses. So they know what they're doing, and they're quite capable. So unless your business is kind of unique and in terms of supply chain, maybe some product development backlog that you have, that requires your input, might require some more, but it's 60 hours. Yeah. At the same time, we don't obviously, if someone wants to be involved sort of on a deeper level with the brand, and with Rainforest going forward, that could be also accommodated and discussed, right?
Yeah.
So we're very much open to that. Yeah.
So another follow-up question from Sridhar. Does Rainforest also take over business on other platforms like Lazada, or is it exclusively Amazon? And what about, if somebody has their own website like Shopify, or, they're doing their own WooCommerce stuff. So are you open to those kinds of businesses as well?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, we love, Asia presence if they have one. So if they have sort of the business on Lazada, definitely quite a few of brands that we acquired have Shopify or other platform revenue already. Quite often they also have some other revenue streams, like some B2B sort of parts of the business. So yeah, we are very much open, and that's no issue at all, because ultimately this is the way we are going, as I was saying, going off Amazon eventually, whether it will be happening like straight away or over time. But that's a plan for us. We just prefer that a significant portion is coming from Amazon ecosystem, significant being like 60 to 70%. But again, it's not a hard rule there. Yeah.
Okay. And you're looking for businesses based anywhere in the world, right? I mean, you're of course based in Asia, so you'd prefer Asian businesses because you have, like you can meet with them, and but otherwise you're open to acquiring businesses anywhere in the world, right? Whether it's US, Australia, Europe.
Yeah, I mean, we acquired sort of US and European businesses in the past, and we'll continue to do so. But we are sort of talking to a lot of Asian sellers and quite focused on this part of the world, as well as still keep looking sort of at it globally. Yeah.
Yeah. And does it matter where the products are sourced from? Like, we focus a lot on products that are sourced from India. And, that's also sort of one way of differentiating a brand, because most brands and most sellers source their products from China, but we're differentiating, our brands are sort of different. But does it matter to you? I mean, as long as the business is profitable and the supply chains and all are set up, it should be okay, right? but do you have like a preference?
I mean, so first and foremost, yes, it's ultimately, and it all manifests in the reviews, ratings, rankings, and profitability, right? If you have a great product, great supplier, it should show up sort of downstream. Your user, your consumer customer should be ultimately happy, and then your business profitable. We don't mind where they're obviously sourcing their product from, but it's important to. It could be sort of turned on its head. It could be a differentiator, right? If everyone is sourcing from China, but you're sourcing from a unique supplier in India, for example, right, and have an exclusive agreement, and the product itself unique, and it's hard to source that. That in itself could be a major sort of USP sort of your business, and put it like make it much more defensible, right? So we would prefer that scenario as opposed to, okay, you're sourcing something that in China, and on the same sort of in the same industrial park in China there are 12 other factories doing exactly the same thing. Then it's harder, right? And you search for that keyword, that product, and you see almost identical, quite sometimes identical images, right? But just different brands. Okay, so it will be harder to convince us that there is like a strong defensibility there, right? So that's how I would look at it. So if supply chain is crucially important, right? And then there are obviously tariffs. There is another thing, like a topic of conversation. We can spend an hour talking about that. But another reason for you to maybe look for alternative suppliers, right, or sources. Yeah.
Exactly. Mark, did you have another question?
Look, just about like within the brand, should they be like cohesive products? Should it be the same niche? Should it be the same material it's made from in different niches? Or do you don't care if you're selling a dog leash and a salad bowl? What do you sort of look for in that sort of when it comes to
that's a great question, and I wouldn't say we get a lot of those, but you do get like a fair number of those. They tend to be
especially on
smaller.
Lazada and all, I think. Especially Lazada,
they tend to be
some of the Asian
a bit smaller, I would say, brands, if you want to call them. But it's almost it's kind of multiple brands, so what could become a multiple brand, but now it's just 5 or 10 products, but each product almost in a category of its own, quite often has a different supplier. So that it doesn't add, let's put it this way, it doesn't add sort of to that valuation, right? Because it increases complexity without increasing the revenue and the profitability per ASIN, right? So let's say you have 5 of them, each one is only generating, I don't know, $10,000 per year, but each one has a separate supplier. And at the same time, it doesn't look like none of them have like that brand loyalty and cohesiveness, right? So it's, it wouldn't be. So ideally, we prefer when it's sort of has that aspect, cohesive narrative, story, brand loyalty.
And I think too, sourcing from India gives a lot, of our members a chance to get a really good brand, because they might source it from a village, so they can have videos of the village actually making the goods, and all that type of things that are going to help that brand stand out and be something special on Amazon. It's not just being whipped through a machine. It's got a story, and you're helping people, or you can develop your brand into some sort of community type thing. So I think our members should look at that and think that they've got probably a really good chance of getting something a little bit more unique than something that you can jump onto Alibaba and choose which supplier you're gonna get it from.
Definitely. It's good to do those experimentations, obviously, and the early stages. A lot of sellers, that's how they get started, and they do those things. And I suppose that's where maybe doing that deal where you don't sell all your ASINs or all your seller account in one go. Maybe one of those 5 of those 10 is doing particularly well and driving 90% whatnot, right? So maybe that's where it makes sense to sell just one and try to build a brand around that. So you have a trademark and you just transfer that one or two ASINs basically. That's the deal, and then you keep the 80% or 8 others, in development stages, right?
Yeah. So guys, if you have any more questions for Yev, type them in the comments now. We'll start wrapping up this webinar here. But if you have any final questions, type them in the comments. We'll be here for another few minutes. So let us know if you have any questions about exiting your Amazon brand, or an e-commerce business, how to structure your company, how to maximize your valuation. Any questions that you have for Yev, type them in the comments now. So Yev, also, so there are a lot of sellers here in Asia that are maybe just starting out. They're selling they're very small sellers. They're kind of just entrepreneurs. Maybe this is just a side hustle for them. How much time do you typically think it takes sellers to have an exit ready business? I mean, of course it varies. There's so many factors. It really depends on how much you can invest. If you're investing like $100,000, of course you can grow the business quickly. But typically, what do you see, new sellers starting out, entrepreneurs, how long does it take them to establish a business that you would even, look at or consider?
I would say it does take 2 to 3 years on average, given that us included, majority of the buyers looking for 18 months of track records. So most of the deals that we are seeing typically fall into that bucket, somewhere between 2 to 3 years. But also, it's important to say that as everyone knows, the space is changing so fast, right? So, and it's kind of accelerating, right? And now with post-COVID world, and like the traffic that you're seeing going from offline to online is quite substantial. Certain categories especially benefiting extremely from that. So, it's. That time I would say is shortening, is getting shorter, right? Like compared to, let's say, a decade ago, would have been much longer. Sort of that run up to, let's say, your first million or your first 10 million in revenue, compared to nowadays. Sometimes we see businesses that within 12 months they're already doing multi-million-dollar revenue, right? Because they hit a specific niche, a particular trend. And they were amazing at executing, and building that connection with the community, the customer. So that can happen very, very quickly in some cases. And I think
I was just going to say, what are your specific plans for the future with all this? I know it's to buy businesses, but where does it all what's the where does it all end type of thing,
what's
like
the
acquiring
end goal? What's the end game? Are you going to become this multi-million-dollar conglomerate that has a ton of e-commerce brands, or like where is Rainforest going to be 5 years down the line?
It's in the name. It becomes that rainforest, right? Like Amazon rainforest,
yeah, cool.
Stays and grows, sustainably, sort of in perpetuity, right? And so I think there is no immediate or near term sort of exit for us that we're looking at. So the idea here is like to grow, to build these brands individually, into stronger and stronger sort of have a stronger presence across multiple e-commerce channels, and in some cases even going offline as well. So having pursuing omni-channel strategies as well where it's appropriate, and doing it sort of truly globally. So not just North America, but everywhere. Yeah.
But I think also, if someone's got an exciting brand, would it be fair to say that you can sort of help them to sort of open sort of certain doors for certain marketplaces to expand that brand more quickly, more efficiently. Would that be a good conversation for people to come to you and start having?
Yeah, definitely. So as I was saying, like we are probably much more creative and flexible when it comes to sort of arrangement, relationship, partnerships. So definitely, hit me up or someone in our team and start that conversation. And even if you are not looking to sell right now, but you need certain, as you're saying, certain doors to be opened or certain help, or even just a certain advice. We have a ton of operational expertise. So just open that conversation, and we're quite approachable. So wherever we can help, we will help. Yeah.
Right.
That's
I really
excellent,
like the association now. I get it. Amazon rainforest.
Rainforest.
Is that what? Like when you said both together, I was like, okay, that makes sense. No wonder.
Was that
The circle is closed.
Yeah.
the light bulb moment, Megla?
Yeah, it was. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense now. Amazon rainforest. Yeah, that's fantastic. So,
cool.
Are you looking for investors as well in Rainforest? I mean, of course, you have a lot of, capital raised, and you probably have big investors and all. But are you also looking for smaller investors to invest in the company?
Well, it's kind of like, I wouldn't say no, but generally I would say we are a little bit beyond that point. So,
Okay.
It's more sort of institutional investor at this stage, and we don't have like a shortage of capital. There are obviously always conversations happening, and we're sort of lucky to receive a lot of interest from investors. So yeah, we are open, but it's a little bit outside of my wheelhouse in particular. But
Right.
so I should say yes, approach us. But yeah, beyond that, it's hard for me to but on the smaller side, I think it will be tricky at this stage. Yeah.
Right.
I just have one request, Jeb.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you get any good tips, like Dollar Shave Clubs or companies that look like they're going to shape up to be like Dollar Shave, and you've got any early investment tips, please let me know.
Will do. Definitely.
And you are hiring as well, right? Because you are growing so fast and acquiring. So in case
exactly, the team is growing. Just last week we added 2 more people. The week before, another person. So we have like people joining every week nowadays, and that's gonna probably continue for foreseeable future. So yeah, definitely like. Reach out to myself or to number sort of people on the leadership executive team, to our recruiters as well. It's a cross of different segments of the business, from operational to potentially acquisition. And again, if it's not right now, maybe it's next month. So reach out, start a conversation. Yeah. The thing is, like, we have a lot of roles that are opening up or planning to be opened up like within a month or 2 months. So please reach out through LinkedIn is the best, or like you see my email, just drop me an email and I'll route it internally to the right person.
Right, and these of course don't have to be based in Singapore.
That's the beauty of post-COVID world, and also the nature of e-commerce, right? It's quite often done remotely. It has to be done remotely or in a number of sort of time zones, because we have suppliers in one place, consumers in another, or consumers are spread all over the globe. So yeah, it doesn't have to be Singapore.
Yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of people in our community that are sellers themselves, and they also want to do something on the side, and they're experienced with Amazon-related stuff. They know how to do listings and manage PPC and things like that. So, yeah, in case you're interested, definitely reach out to Yev as well. Okay, anything else, Marg and Kev, before we sign off?
Oh, I don't think so. I think we've covered quite a lot there. So I think people should start thinking about building their brand nicely and maybe then talking to Yev in 12 months' time or something.
There's many scenarios to think about, and but like even if it's a bricks and mortar company that you were trying to sell, right? You don't open it up one day and then sell it the next, do you? So you sort of you build it up, nurture the business, sort of make sure the figures are right, sort of have everything, processes in place, and do you get points for having good processes yet?
Yeah, for sure. It goes to that transferability, operational.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So have good.
Yeah.
But what my point was, to have good processes in place from day one is key. When you go to sell a business, you've got good processes in place. Guys like yourself love facts and figures, but like to know where you find those facts and figures.
That's well said.
You like to go to the right spot.
Yeah,
definitely.
So last question. So if there were 3 things that you wanted to tell sellers to focus on to maximize their valuation, what would they be? Like, what are the top 3 things that they must focus on? Of course, there's so many different factors, and you mentioned all of those, but the top 3.
The top 3 would be sort of profitability, margin, and that defensibility or uniqueness, right?
Uniqueness, okay.
Yeah, and that should play into that to make that profitability sustainable going forward, because something that we analyze basically what happened in the past, but also ultimately we have to project how that can predict what's going to happen in the future and how we can build on that. And so uniqueness is an important factor there, right? Like how sustainable what you achieved so far going forward. So those 3 things, yeah.
Okay, that's fantastic. And uniqueness,
Excellent.
of course, from the India sourced products. I think a lot of the products are pretty unique. So, guys, you're in a very special position here in the India sourcing network. And we have Daniel who says, "Can't wait for tomorrow lunch with Norm."
No.
That's going to be so much fun. And Marg has to wake up 2 a.m. or I don't know if you'll go to sleep or not, or maybe you'll go to sleep early,
I'm going to sleep early, and I'm setting my alarm to for 1:30. So and I'll probably set another one for 1:35 in case I sleep in.
Yeah.
So,
I'll have to
I'll have
put
a
my
sleep first.
Yeah, it'll be 12 a.m. for me, so I'll put my son to bed early, and then I'll be all ready and waiting.
The beauty of the global world, right?
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
The clock never stops. Yeah, I know.
It's fun. Okay, Yev, thank you so much for your time today, for sharing all of this information. And, I'm sure a lot of people from our community will be in touch with you over the next few months, years, as they, build their businesses. And of course, you are in our Facebook group, so anyone can reach out to you there as well. And guys, email Yev if you have any questions at all about exiting or structuring your Amazon business for an exit. All right, thanks a lot.
Megla, before we go, and another thing is when we do the masterminds, we'll be going to have special guests on our masterminds.
Yes.
And so, yeah.
Exactly.
So down the track.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Once we start our mastermind, so we'll do our workshop, India sourcing workshop, end of August, and then we're going to start recruiting for the mastermind as well. And once you join the mastermind, then of course we're going to help you build your brand, and we'll have Rainforest as part of the mastermind as well, so that they can guide us and help us
and help you sell it.
Exactly, help you sell it. So that'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, we come to the end of this webinar, and we will see you guys next week for another Webinar Wednesday. Have a great week, guys.
Thank you, Yev. Thanks for your time.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you guys,
Yev.
Kevin,
Bye.
Margaret, Megla.
See you later.
Pleasure.